Hello everyone and welcome to the video. My name is Steve O'Lear. I am a member of the ARHS. I sit on the board of directors and also am the second vice president. Today I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step on how to weather these particular cars. These are the Lehigh New England cement cars that we had offered starting just a little while ago, a few months back. That's all 6 of them, the various numbers that we have. So sit back and enjoy it. Alright everybody, we're over in the paint shop now. We're going to start off with some D&H gray, thin down with some reefer white. It's probably an 80-20 mix. Got that loaded in the airbrush, which is on its last leg, so I hope it lasts for all this. We're just going to kind of fade this a little bit. Not a whole lot added to it, just enough so that it actually kind of fades the lettering, gives it a little sunbeam bleach kind of look. All the trucks are removed on the 6 cars already. That's really about all you're after, just kind of like that. I'll do the other 6 and we'll keep going with the next step. Just to show you how I do the other 5, just to make it easier, do them all at once like this. One of these turntables works so much nicer than holding them one at a time, spinning them around. Yeah. I'm not going to bother with the undersides because the sun doesn't hit there anyway. It wouldn't bleach it to begin with. Just little bits over the top of it. We're not going to go too crazy with this because I modeled between 1943, 1953. These particular cars have a build date in 1950 on them, so they'd be relatively new on my layout. You can see what I'm doing here is very thin. I'll hit it with a hair dryer and it kind of pushes it all into the recesses. You know, right where all the kind of wet grime would kind of congregate, I guess you'd say. It's the kind of thing where, you know, it usually starts to look terrible before it starts to look good. Yeah, that's kind of what we're after. Something that looks kind of like that. A little goofiness and gooey, messy mess. It works. All right, now we're going to move on to some Monoflex Grimy Black. I have it loaded in the airbrush. I just barely thin this. I want it to be rather dry. You got to be real careful with your finger control so you don't flood the model with paint though. We're going to do the same kind of thing, mainly just the underbody, maybe a little bit on the roof. I just want to get little bits in there, just to add a little variety to the grime. Darken up spots where there should be shadows. Oh, there, a little tip dry, but it cleared. Ooh, see, that's what you don't want to do. Luckily, it's in a spot nobody's ever going to see. Yeah, I have trouble with this airbrush. It doesn't have much control anymore. It's very worn out. I've had it for years, and it's definitely time for a new one. Just little bits. Like I said, I don't want to get too crazy with these. Just a little more up there. Could fix that. See? I got a little bit too much paint in there on the air reservoir. So, while it's still wet, jam a piece of paper towel in there. You could scrub it off. That's not too bad at all. If you would focus, you could see. Come on, focus up. There we go. That's all right now. All right, now what I'm going to be doing is taking that same mix of the D&H gray and white and just trying to make my weathering a little more subtle. Because like I said before, don't have a lot of control with this airbrush. It's very worn out. That's not bad. That's pretty much the kind of idea I was after. Move on to the next one. Last part is going to be some dull coat here. Mainly because the rest of the work we do is going to be done with brushes, some washes of acrylics and enamels, and I don't want it to take off what's here. So this will seal it all in and we'll be good. All right, now we're back at the bench, working on some oils. Just take a sponge, pick up a little bit from the end, and this is burnt umber. I'm just going to get a couple little dabs of it. Darker colors like this will usually mean older rust, and that's pretty much what we're going for. I got this fairly well thinned down. I'm just going to add little bits of it where some rust would most likely collect. Here's what's good with the oils too. Say you don't like that. You get some thinner on the brush and you just make it go away. That's it. So we're just going to flow some of this in the spots where we think it would settle. Anywhere where you'd get water to collect. You can see I'm using these as a guide. We're not going anywhere near that level of rust. Now these cars would be only a few years old, but they would be in a very rough service. Just gonna get a few dabs here and there. I think that's way too much there. I'm not worried about it. Now it looks fine. Now I'm going to show you how to do the streaking effect, kind of like that. You get a little bit of that oil up there. You just kind of pull it down. Now, this is just a regular paper towel. If you want it to be darker, just do another layer. You end up with something kind of like that. I've been hitting this edge of the sill up here because it looks like a good spot for water to gather up. I've done a few of these hatch covers and things, but we'll also move on to the ends. Now I'm going to do pretty much a layer on all the brake rigging. It'll help to make them stand out, show you a little more detail, especially on this chain for the handbrake. Maybe get a little bit on the wheel too. You can always take the sponge again and just dab it to lighten it up, spread it out, make it a little more even. Maybe at these connection points here where there's bolts that would hold in grab irons, that's a good spot too. Corners of the steps. Cement would be very abrasive, So climbing up and down these ladders with cement on the bottom of your feet would rip the paint up and give a good spot for rust to form. Generally little joints like this where two pieces of metal would connect, that's a good spot too. And we'll do another little streak over here. Just a tiny one. Just something like that. Give it a little interest. Yeah. Same thing on this end. You can get the entire step there. Get a little bit around that one, make it stand out a little. That's pretty much what we're after. You know, we're not going to go as crazy as that. You know, that's just a bit much. Maybe if I was modeling the late 60s or something, when these cars were still in service. Like I said, all these spots where the pieces of steel meet each other. Maybe get a little bit in that. I don't know if you could see that in that seam where the underside of the roof meets what I believe is called the slope sheet here. Get some more on this bottom sill. Maybe to have it come up that one rib a little bit. That one looks too clean for me. That spot right there. Yeah, get a little bit around here, just make these details kind of stand out a little bit. All those hatches for the hopper ends. Use the same burnt umber as before and just add a little bit on those trucks. If you notice, I already painted these. It's just a grimy black with a rust kind of color around the springs. That's more of an artistic thing than a prototypical thing. Just makes the springs stick out. You know, shows a little more detail to it. Get a little more on that hopper bay. Right there. get the trucks on this side too. I got this fairly thin, like a wash. But you could still thin it out even more if you like. Just a little bit of the oil thinner. And it ends up being fine. You can always get a little bit on the couplers also. Alright, now we're going to move on to burnt sienna. That's a little more orange colored. This would represent newer rust. That's generally a little lighter colored. I'll go over here where my streak is. Just add a little bit of that. Get rid of the excess. Just gives a little color variation. It keeps everything interesting. Rust is very rarely one single color. Let me get a little bit in here. One spot I definitely want to get the burnt sienna in is the chain that's on the handbrake. That's constantly moving, constantly rubbing on something. That's where you're going to get a lot of newer rust. Alright, so I've gone over pretty much the whole car with the same technique with the two different color oils, the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. You know, so just getting spots here and there, whatever I thought looked good. And that's going to have to sit and dry overnight before we can really do anything else with it. We're going to do more to the trucks, more to the wheels, and then we're going to move on to adding some real concrete. Alright, it's been a little bit, and now we're up to doing the trucks. I'm going to do the wheel sets. The trucks, basically, these are the type that have friction bearing in it, so that it's filled with cotton waste and oil. That oil would leak everywhere. So we're just going to get little bits around the center of the wheel. It's kind of a minute detail. When the car's moving, you're not going to see it. It's just the slightest bit of paint too. And the other spot we want to hit is right around these covers, because they tended to leak a little bit also. that cover would hinge up and open, and that gave you access to the journal and the cotton waste inside with the oil. Occasionally that would get stuck and snag, and you'd end up with a hot box. This is just plain old flat black paint. And I'm going to do that the rest of the way around on all the other ones. Alright, so that's what the trucks and wheels should look like when it's all done. Now we're going to move on to adding some titanium white, very Bob Ross. And we're going to use one of these makeup sponges. Get that to focus. Come on, there we go. You just rip off an end to get a nice jagged edge like that. I have a little bit tucked in here. And you just want to get a tiny small amount on there. This is going to recreate where you'd have streaks, stains for very thin dusting layers of concrete, or cement, I should say. You can even kind of swipe down little bits. And see how you get that little effect there of a run? You know, kind of like that. What I'm going to be doing is hitting a few spots on the walkway. Keep it kind of random, like I did over there on the hatch. Same kind of idea. Pull it down like that, maybe get a little bit tucked in there. Anywhere it would settle. This is going to represent just the fine dusting. And get a little bit on the ladder too. Probably isn't a bad idea to get it over here too, with where the hatches are for the hoppers. So yeah, it's just adding just a hint of it. That's really all we're after. And you could always add more if you like. It all depends on just how weathered you want it to look. Alright, I'm going to hit the trucks just a little bit on the surfaces where this would settle. So kind of like the upper edge. Maybe across the bottom a little bit. Just like that. You could probably do this dry brushing also. But the sponge is in my hand. Nice and easy. It's convenient. We're not looking to make it completely white, just a dusting really. You know, as random as possible. See across the top, on the sides. Not very much. So we can give it a little streak right here. It's just barely noticeable. And that's really all we're after. This is now the last step in what we're doing. This here is actually cement. Now, I salvaged it from some home project I did, I don't know how many years ago, but there it is. I got a little dab of white glue in here, right out of the container. Get a little bit of that on a toothpick. And, you know, kind of go around these hatches a little. Just getting the white glue directly on the plastic. It will hold. It'll do just fine. Trying to get it down in that little crevice there next to where the hatch is. I put some wax paper down to catch whatever spillage we get from the cement. And I can catch it and reuse it all again and again. Whatever doesn't stick to the model. You can even go a little bit on there. Get some streaks coming down. Just kind of use the toothpick to pull it into place. And just kind of spread it out like that. I have this putty tool, I don't know what it's called. I'll just scoop up some of that. Just kind of pour it right on top of where I put the glue. Kind of push it down into there. Tap off all the loose stuff. And I take a burnishing tool that I made. It's just out of like a piece of bamboo or something. Little spots where I'm not quite happy with how it is. Maybe I want to make it look a little grainy. You know, you could use that to kind of redirect where the concrete is. You know, if it looks too smooth or it's not poked into the spots you want it to be. Just kind of like that. Gives you an idea what it looks like. The French have a term, the coup de grace or something like that. Coup de, whatever, final blow, I think it means. That's what this is. I don't know, I took German in high school, not French, so I couldn't tell you what the proper pronunciation is, and I'm probably messing it all up anyway. But that's what it is. Okay, just kind of like that. Get some around the hatches, put a little on the trucks, ladders, ends, all that stuff. Just gotta think, how would it settle? The hatches are here, so it should be, at least on the trucks, more prevalent to the inside of the model, not towards the outside. Don't worry about getting this stuff on the wheels or on the trucks. I've never had a problem with it causing any operational problems. That's kind of what it looks like. Once again, I'm going off of these pictures. I'm not going anywhere near to that level of weathering. But you can. You do what you want. Get a little bit around these hatches, like so. This lip right here looks like a good spot where it would settle. You get the other side too. Maybe a little more in that sill there. And that's what it's looking like. You could do this, clean it up a little bit, move it around, make it look a little more grainy, flatten it out, whatever looks right. So that's about it. It gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. Same technique I showed. A little bit on the steps and stuff, a little on the coupler. On these inside, and I don't know what, bottom sill, maybe, I don't know what that would be called, that little lip there. Hopper bottoms, a little bit on the trucks. It's a little darker here because it's wet. When it dries, there's a different car. It ends up being more white. And that is about it. So, I hope you give it a try. And if I see you anywhere, let me know. I will show you why this wax paper is here now. cleanup is a lot easier that way. And of course, I keep my cement in a thing of Parmesan cheese.